Nick Chubb spoke to the media after the minicamps in which, Nick Chubb was signed this weekend and was out there at minicamps. And I was curious just how much of a participant he would be. As Jonathan Alexander's video shows you here, looking very crisp. I dubbed this box drill that they're doing the evading defenders in the backfield. Because that's what the Texans running backs had to do all last year, was just evade guys who are deep in the backfield. So far, so good with that. Always cautious not to read too much into running backs during non-padded stuff, because every single one of them looks like a freak of nature. Every single one of them looks super, super crisp. Chubb wasn't himself last year, but he is coming off an injury that, by and large, people look at as a 2-year recovery. This is what I got most excited about. The answer he gave when asked, when did you start to feel like you're back to your old self? This is the answer that Nick Chubb gave.
Probably while I was at home during my off-season training. I had all my numbers that I usually do in off-season, so speed and weights and things like that.
So that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I can tell you, I had 14 or 15 orthopedic injuries during my NFL career, and the dicey part is when sometimes the medical staff will clear you to play and you're structurally okay, as one of you had said yesterday. You're structurally fine, you're cleared to play, but you're not the same from a strength standpoint. And our old strength coach, Dan Riley, used to get really nervous about this because he would have injured guys do a lot of single leg exercises. He wanted to see, all right, if you can single leg press the same weight with your surgery leg that you can with the other leg, that's a pretty good sign that you're back to full strength. A lot of times you're cleared to play where there's still a strength gap there, and you're out on the field and you just don't feel the same. And we saw from the clips of Joe Mixon playing last year, he didn't look athletically and explosively the same as he did before. So the weight room strength does matter. I don't like using the weight room to compare one player to another player, but when it's an individual guy, especially a guy who works out as hard as Nick Chubb does, those workout videos that I see, I allow myself to get a little bit excited about it. But he's a lot of long road, the steep hill to climb and coming back from an injury like that. Just a little bit of fun here. He was asked, I think by Cole, I'm not sure, about his actual squat number.
Pretty legendary. Can you share what your squat number is right now?
I don't have a number.
Yeah, never answer how much you squat, because the person asking you, Cole isn't that guy, but there's some guys are doing a quarter squat and saying that they can squat 600 pounds or what have you. So you always just say, as an NFL player, I learned, just tell people like, well, I try to play it safe. So I do high reps with 505 or a bench. Yeah, I just rep out 405 and see how it goes. There's some dudes. Gary Walker used to just walk in and he could, without a warm up, just basically just like a minimal warm up, just start repping out 455. Freakishly strong dudes. I think Chubb's kind of like that. This I liked hearing. What influenced you to sign with the Texans?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is knowing what this team is about from afar. I've always been a fan of Coach D'Amico, and I know some guys on the team. I know Joe Mixon. I know what he's about, and I watched him from afar on the other sideline plenty of years. And I know how hard he runs the ball, and I know the opportunity I had here with this team, being an up-and-coming team, and past 2 years I really turned it on. So I know I had a chance to come here and win a lot of games, surrounded by a great group of people.
Where'd I go? Things have been ugly up in Cleveland for a while now. And, Joe Thomas went through it before Nick Chubb did. And you can see it sometimes just in the demeanor of the head coach and the way guys talk about their coach and how they operate, that this is a team that, like, D'Amico's a different kind of coach. And it's nothing to say, look, you can be like Tony Dungy, that approach works. But when you think about having fun playing for a coach, D'Amico jumping around on the sidelines and everything, and then Chubb's ability to cross-check it with Joe Mixon or any other guys that he knows that he's been here, I think it's probably a breath of fresh air. I know I've watched the Texans. J.J. Watt kind of mentioned something similar yesterday when he spoke, that you can just see with the way they practice that there's an energy there that you can't fake it. Sometimes coaches will have to almost ask or demand that their players play with more energy, play more free, play more loose, and the guys just, those aren't those guys. This is a fun team to play for, especially when you're coming out of just really a lot of drama up there in Cleveland over the last few years. This one I like too. Chubb on his first impression since he's been here of what the team and D'Amico have been like.
Of D'Amico Ryans, and what does it say that this organization wanted you so bad?
Yeah, I mean, he's a young coach, a lot of energy, a lot of intensity. He's young, fresh, he wants to win. And, I was questioning why they wanted me. And then I came here and I saw a bunch of guys who like to work and not talk. And I realized that I'm a perfect fit. So I realized why they wanted me here, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and that's it. The other side of it is this. Sometimes you've got a team that's full of guys with a whole lot of energy, but sometimes it's like the worst version of the Cincinnati Bengals back when they used to just have guys that were a little too much energy to the point when they're getting arrested and whatnot. And yes, I'll address the Jimmy Ward stuff at some other point today. I got 4 live streams scheduled. And thank you to all the people who have subscribed to HB Studios, new member, or who have become members. Apparently a movie studio, so obviously I'm destined for Hollywood at this point. I've been identified. Sorry, everybody. I'll still try to keep up with my Texans content. But as far as the kinds of guys and the fact that he said that he was wondering why the Texans would want to sign him, I was taken aback by that. Sean Pendergast and I both said that. I actually asked Nick Caserio about it this morning when we had him on. Is you hear all this stuff about how Nick Chubb doesn't have an ego. No, the guy just wants to work. He's the opposite of the stereotypical NFL superstar. And I think even guys that don't have huge egos, I feel like most NFL stars, even if they had just gotten hit by a train and were in a full body cast, would still be offended if teams didn't really, really want them. Where this does play out and why I like this so much, as you guys know, is that this is a $2.5 million contract plus incentives. Like this is a contract that I think a lot of guys, even coming off of injury, might have almost started to get a bit howdy about, and they say, well, I'm not going to sign for that. I know I've got injuries, but I'm worth more than that. I think he just wants to get back in the building. Again, going back to my own injury history, the one year when I was still trying to decide whether to play football or not, and it was the worst place to be because I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Looking back on it, I turned down some opportunities to sign in the offseason where the biggest benefit would have been doing my rehab around football players with the training staff, because you're out there running every day against guys that are at the speed you need to get to. And I think with Chubb, there probably got to be a point where he was tired of dealing with wondering whether the Browns were going to re-sign him or not. And he just said, I gotta get into a building, and I like this opportunity. Diana Rossini reported that he had more lucrative offers elsewhere, but he liked this. So I feel really good about that. I think part of him wondering, why would they want me, is he's looking at it and he's thinking, man, they've got Joe Mixon. They've got Dameon Pierce, and he's seen the Dameon Pierce highlights from a couple years ago, or would have watched that. But then they also just drafted Woody Marks, a guy that's probably going to get a lot of opportunities to play this year. In a lot of ways, it just ends up being the perfect scenario, as long as you've got a guy who's willing to pay for less than he's accustomed to being paid. And that part makes it really low risk for the Texans, really high upside. I like that a lot. Chubb, on the adjustments that he might have to make in playing behind a new offensive line, this was interesting.
Most part, it's all the same. Running the ball, the same thing I've done in Cleveland, same blocking scheme, it's the same play. So it's been fine from that adjustment.
Yeah. I don't want to read too much into that. That's my big takeaway. Because immediately I thought, oh wait, do we have a hint now? Are they going to be Cleveland does a whole lot of outside zone. I wouldn't read into that at all, other than that there might be some similar terminology. By and large, teams run the same plays. The way the offense is different is how do they get into those plays? What are their rules within it? I don't think that the onboarding is going to be difficult for Chubb, and that part of it that's a bare minimum in my mind. I'm more concerned about how CJ Stroud's going to operate, doing some things differently. And Nick said some really cool things this morning about that. Just as a quick aside, yes, CJ will 100% have more command at the line of scrimmage just because of the way Caley wants to operate his offense, including getting the quarterback really involved in the run game and identifying the mic and getting things lined up properly and getting into the right plays and alignments and responsibilities. CJ's going to be more involved. So that part I'm very excited to hear, because CJ has that IQ to be able to do it. And it's a waste if you don't use it. It's one thing if you got a jackass quarterback and you're just trying to get the best out of him and you just don't want him to screw it up. When you've got a guy who's capable of doing it, by all means, use CJ's brain to the team's advantage. This one is good. Just we haven't heard from Joe Mixon on this. I would be incredibly surprised if we found out that Joe Mixon didn't like having Nick Chubb here, including based on the Green Light podcast from last year with Chris Long, where this was, remember, from last year during the season, just as Nick Chubb was announced to return, Chris Long asked Joe Mixon about it.
Nick Chubb comes back this weekend.
Yeah.
Is he just one of the most right? Yes. Is he one of the most universally respected backs? Like if you just walked into every running back room in the NFL and asked him,
Yeah.
is he that guy? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, hey, me and Chubb came out of high school together, 2014, man. So,
okay.
I've been knowing Chubb since back in them high school days, and to obviously know the type of player that he is. I mean, he's capable of a home run at any time. He's going to wear the defense out, and obviously, I think he's very underappreciated as a running back. But I mean, I think Cleveland, they doing everything that they can to stick by him. A person like me can appreciate that, you know what I'm saying? And I think that him coming back, I think it's going to be a major difference in our offense.
Okay, so that last part, Cleveland did not ultimately stand by. If you're into Schadenfreude, which I encourage you to be, I actually genuinely feel bad for Browns fans in that when they saw that it was a $2.5 million contract, I imagine myself as a Browns fan. If I were a Browns fan, I'd say, okay, I get it. You got to move on from him. He's 29 years old. He had this major injury. He didn't look the same last year. I get it. They just drafted 2 running backs this year, but $2.5 million, like for an all-time favorite. It was one thing like the Giants. The Giants owner was trying to convince the GM, like, hey, this is an all-time favorite guy. And that's a really lucrative contract you're talking about. Obviously, no injury situation there that you're worried about. But this is $2.5 million for a guy who's the epitome of everything you want in a running back, other than the healthy knee. And it's hard, but you know what? Not my problem. I'm doing a reaction to Danielle Hunter in about 45 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the members who are here. Don't have much time to get to you, but yes, Texans paying their own players with no BS has to have helped Chubb with the decision. The prove it dynamic is big. They've got a history of signing guys to 1-year deals like Dalton Schultz, like Mario Edwards, and Malik Collins, various other guys, and then bringing them back. And I think that's very much a dynamic for probably why at least Chubb's agent would have informed him of that if Chubb didn't already know it. So yes, thank you everybody. And hopefully if we have more details about Jimmy Ward's arrest for alleged domestic violence in Montgomery County this morning, we'll address that at some point today.